Hey guys, welcome back to the Matt Newton Football Show. I'm your host Matt, and we're here to talk about, are the Dolphins physical enough to win a Super Bowl? So let's start with a brief history lesson. Jason Pauly from Medium created a comprehensive chart outlining all the offensive and defensive rankings for all the past Super Bowl winners. And when you look at this chart, there are a lot of interesting takeaways. But when you go to the Miami Dolphins back in 1972, when they had the perfect season, they won the Super Bowl. Guess what? They had the number one ranked offense and the number one ranked defense. And to me, that's very telling because it stands to reason in order for them to achieve that feat and be an undefeated team in the NFL, they were probably the most physically dominant team for an entire season. The last time the Dolphins won a playoff game was in 2000 versus Peyton Manning's Indianapolis Colts. Yeah, he retired a long time ago. Lamar Smith ran for 206 yards, and I'd argue the Dolphins were the more physical team that day. The following week against the Raiders, not so much. In the ensuing years, the Dolphins made it to the playoffs in 2008, only to be defeated by the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens dominated that game on both sides of the ball. In 2016, the Dolphins lost a playoff game to the Pittsburgh Steelers in the opening round of the playoffs. The difference in physicality in that game was so obvious, it prompted Phil Simms to say this.
Very physical performance by the Steelers today on both sides, offensive line and the defense.
Early in the offseason, I made a video discussing the top 5 games I'm concerned about on the Dolphins' 2024 schedule. And if you didn't catch the video, you can click here to catch it. But if you did catch the video, you'd know that all 5 games on the Dolphins schedule that I was concerned about had a reputation of being very physical. And I had a question as to whether the Dolphins would have enough physicality to match those 5 teams. Part of the reason why I felt that way is because the Dolphins already had problems with physical teams in the 2023 season. Games against the Eagles, the Ravens, the Chiefs, and the Bills all proved to be very difficult for the Miami Dolphins to match up with. And the other part of the reason why I felt that way is the Dolphins lost 2 of their most physical players on offense and defense, that being Christian Wilkins and Robert Hunt. So the Dolphins now have to not only replace those guys that they lost, but then they also have to be more physical than they were in 2023. So at the start of training camp, Jordan Poyer had this to say about playing against the Miami Dolphins.
Playing against this team over the past few years, you kind of you get a sense of, okay, if you get on top of this team, they might fold. And there's some teams that are, I'm just being honest.
A few days later, Miami Herald columnist Omar Kelly tweeted out this about the Miami Dolphins. He wrote, "So it was Jalen Ramsey who delivered a 10-minute speech about being the bullies and dropping the finesse reputation the Dolphins have." And when he says bullies, he's meaning that in the context of football, right? He's not talking about being bullies in the outside world. He's talking about on the football field, he wants the Dolphins to be bullies against the other teams. And that speaks to physicality, right? They're trying to diffuse the reputation that they have of being a team that would wilt if they're not ahead, or if they're playing from behind, that they'll fold. Well, the good news is the Dolphins have added some veterans that can help change that narrative. Guys like Calais Campbell, Jordan Poyer, Marcus May, Jordan Brooks, in addition to David Long Jr., who came in last season. Those guys can bring a certain element of experience and physicality that they had at previous stops. And when it comes to getting your team together and getting the mindset that you want to be not just the most physically dominant team on the field, you also want to be mentally dominant, right? You want to have that kind of mental endurance it takes to finish a 60-minute game. These are the kind of veterans who could impose that kind of mindset on the team.
This is day one, so we got to build our identity. We got to go through a lot of things during this camp, a lot of growing pains, hopefully some, adversity, maybe even a couple fights and good things like that to bring us closer. So.
And even though I mentioned defensive free agents as being the ones to help change the narrative also has to change on the offensive side of the ball. Mike McDaniels coaches a brand of offense that would rather run around you or run past you than run through you. And defensive players know that. So they may say, hey, you might catch a 50-yard touchdown over my head. You might be able to turn the corner and get an 80-yard run. But guess what? When I pull out my boxing gloves and I punch you in the mouth, that changes the whole game. And this is no knock on Mike McDaniels. He does an incredible job running the Miami offense. He just needs to add a little bit more physicality to his game, especially when it comes to running the football. Those 3rd-and-1 passes should really be 3rd-and-1 runs right up the belly of the defense. And I hope Jalen Ramsey's comments to his teammates start to change that narrative and the Dolphins can play more like bullies in the regular season than guys who just want to avoid a fight. When the Dolphins last won a playoff game in 2000, they were the most physical team on the field. When they last won a Super Bowl in 1972, they were the most physical team in the league. What type of physicality will Mike McDaniels' team bring in 2024? So that's it for this video. Let me know what you guys think. Are the Dolphins physical enough to win a Super Bowl? Let me know in the comments section below. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. If you like this video, hit the like button and hit the subscribe button to get all the latest content. And hit the notification bell to get notifications to all your devices from the Matt Newton Football Show.